I stood alone at the edge of the glittering wedding lawn, the laughter of strangers slicing through me like glass. My simple dress clung to me, too plain for this sea of silk and diamonds, their whispers loud enough to sting. Who is she? Why's she here? I clutched my purse, my heart pounding, knowing I didn't belong. But they didn't know my secret, what I'd given up for the groom years ago, a sacrifice even his family barely understood. Tonight, I'd face their scorn, but I wasn't ready for what was coming. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, its cream envelope embossed with gold, a stark contrast to the chipped linoleum of my kitchen table. At 38, I was Rosa, a single mother scraping by in a modest Tacoma suburb, my life a rhythm of work, bills, and my daughter Mia's laughter. The wedding was for Ethan Caldwell, a name that stirred a decade-old ache in my chest. Ethan, once a broken teenager I'd helped save, was now marrying into wealth, his life a world apart from mine. I hadn't seen him in years, but his handwritten note inside the invitation was clear. Rosa, please come. You mean more than you know. I sat in my small duplex, the hum of a neighbor's lawnmower filling the silence, and traced the words. Memories flooded back, Ethan at 17, lost and desperate, and me, 26, a new mom working nights at a diner, making a choice that changed us both. I'd never told anyone the full story, not even Mia, now 12, who was sprawled on the couch, sketching. The invitation was a bridge to a past I'd buried, but also a reminder of the judgment I'd face. Ethan's world, his fiancée Claire's wealthy family, their polished friends, wasn't mine. I was a high school dropout, a waitress turned office clerk, my life a patchwork of resilience. Why did he want me there? Hope flickered, fragile but warm. Maybe Ethan remembered what I'd done, wanted to honor it. I pictured him smiling, thanking me quietly, a moment of closure. But doubt crept in. His family, the Caldwells, had always been distant, their wealth a wall. At our last meeting years ago, his mother's tight smile had said it all. You're not our kind. Going to the wedding meant facing that again, alone. My modest means a spotlight on my difference. I tucked the invitation away, my heart torn. Mia noticed, her brown eyes sharp. What's that, Mom? She asked, pencil pausing. A wedding invite, I said, forcing a smile. An old friend. I'm not sure I'll go. She tilted her head, wise beyond her years. You should. You never do stuff for you. Her words hit hard, a reminder of the life I'd built for her, often at my own expense. I hugged her, her curls tickling my cheek, and felt a spark of courage. For Mia, for Ethan, maybe for me, I'd go. The wedding was in a sprawling estate outside Seattle, a place of manicured lawns and chandeliers that screamed money. I drove up in my beat-up hatchback, the valet's glances a silent judgment. My dress, a navy thrift store find, was pressed but plain, my only jewelry a silver locket with Mia's photo. I'd left her with my neighbor, promising to be home by midnight, but as I stepped onto the lawn, I felt exposed, like a sparrow in a flock of peacocks. The guests were a sea of elegance, women in designer gowns, men in tailored suits, their laughter polished. I clutched my purse, scanning for Ethan, but he was nowhere. A woman in a sparkling dress, Claire's aunt, I later learned, approached, her smile thin. You're a friend of the groom? She asked, her eyes raking my outfit. Yes, I said, my voice steady. Rosa. I've known Ethan since he was a kid. Her eyebrows lifted, curiosity tinged with disdain. How sweet. Not many locals here. She drifted off, leaving me with the sting of her words. Locals. As if I were an intruder, not an invited guest. I found my seat at a table near the back, the place card, Rosa Martinez, a small anchor. Hope surged. Ethan had placed me here, wanted me here. But as more guests arrived, their glances and whispers cut deeper. She's alone, one murmured. No +1. Another laughed. I sipped water, my throat tight, clinging to the thought of Ethan's note. Claire, the bride, floated by, her gown a cloud of lace. She was stunning, her smile warm but fleeting as she greeted guests. I caught her eye, hoping for recognition, but she moved on, her mother, a tall woman in emerald silk, steering her away. Disappointment settled, heavy and familiar. I was invisible here, my sacrifice a secret buried in Ethan's past, not theirs. The ceremony was beautiful, roses cascading over an arch, Ethan's grin bright as he vowed to Claire. I watched from the back, my heart swelling with pride. He'd made it, against the odds I'd helped him overcome. But the reception brought fresh wounds. At my table, a couple, friends of Claire's parents, made small talk, their questions pointed. "What do you do, Rosa?" the woman asked, her tone polite but probing. "I'm an office clerk," I said, my chin high. "And a mom." "How nice," she replied, her smile patronizing. "Must be hard, doing it all alone." Her husband chuckled, and I felt the burn of their judgment, my single status a mark against me. I excused myself, retreating to the garden, the fairy lights blurring through unshed tears. Hope flickered. Maybe Ethan would find me, explain why I was here, but doubt was stronger. I was out of place, my sacrifice forgotten, my presence a curiosity at best. As I stood alone, a server offered me champagne, his kindness a small balm. I took the glass, my fingers trembling, and made a silent vow. I'd stay for Ethan, for the girl I'd been when I helped him. But the night was young, and the whispers were only beginning. I didn't know then that my pain was building toward a moment that would change everything. The wedding reception was a swirl of opulence, the Seattle estate glowing under chandeliers and fairy lights. But for me, Rosa, it was a gauntlet. At 38, a single mother from a modest Tacoma suburb, I stood out like a smudge on a polished mirror. The guests' whispers and sidelong glances cut deeper with every passing hour, their judgment a quiet tide eroding my resolve. I'd come for Liam, the groom, whose handwritten note had promised I meant something, but the disdain of this glittering crowd made me question why I was here. My navy dress felt thinner, my locket heavier, as I navigated their world, clinging to a hope that flickered like a candle in the wind. The reception lawn was a sea of round tables draped in white linen, each a small stage for the guests' subtle scorn. I returned to my seat after the garden, my champagne untouched, the server's kindness a fading warmth. My tablemates, a couple in their 50s, Claire's uncle and his wife, and a young lawyer friend of the bride, were deep in conversation about summer homes and yacht clubs. I sat quietly, my hands folded, trying to blend in, but their eyes kept finding me, curious and cold. The lawyer, a woman named Elise in a sleek red dress, turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Rosa, right? You're a friend of Liam's." Her tone was light, but the question felt like a probe, as if my presence demanded explanation. "Yes," I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. "We go back a long time." "How charming," she replied, her head tilting. "It's just unusual, you know? Most of his friends are from college or Claire's circle." Her words hung in the air, the implication clear. I didn't fit. The couple exchanged a glance, and an awkward silence settled, broken only by the clink of silverware. I sipped my water, my face burning, and focused on the centerpiece roses, willing myself to stay composed. Hope stirred as I scanned the crowd for Liam. I spotted him near the dance floor, his tuxedo crisp, his grin wide as he chatted with guests. Our eyes met for a fleeting moment, and his face softened, a warmth that felt like a lifeline. He raised a hand, a small wave, and my heart lifted. Maybe he'd come over, explain my place here. But Claire's mother, in her emerald gown, pulled him into a photo, and the moment passed. Disappointment settled, heavy and familiar, but that wave, that look, kept me anchored. Liam remembered me, even if no one else did. The passive-aggressive remarks continued, each a needle in my skin. During dinner, salmon and roasted asparagus, far fancier than my usual tacos with Mia. A man at the next table, Claire's cousin, leaned over. "You're the single mom, right?" he asked, his voice loud enough to draw eyes. "Must be tough, raising a kid alone. Ever think about settling down?" I froze, my fork hovering. The table went quiet, their curiosity a spotlight. "I'm happy with my daughter," I said, my voice firm but polite. "She's my world." "Of course," he said, chuckling. "Just saying, weddings like this make you think, don't they?" His wife nudged him, but the damage was done. Elise smirked, and the uncle's wife offered a pitying smile, as if my life were a tragedy they'd rather not touch. I pushed my plate away, appetite gone, and felt the weight of their assumptions. Single, poor, less. My locket burned against my chest, Mia's photo inside a reminder of why I endured this. My inner conflict churned. Part of me wanted to flee, to spare myself the humiliation. I didn't belong here, in this world of wealth and privilege. But Liam's note, "You mean more than you know," echoed, a promise I couldn't abandon. What had I done for him, all those years ago, that warranted this invitation? The memory was a locked door, one I wasn't ready to open, but it gave me strength. I'd stay for him, for the girl I'd been, even if every whisper tested my dignity. The evening wore on, the band playing soft jazz, couples swaying on the dance floor. I stayed at my table, avoiding attention, but the judgment followed. Claire's aunt, the one who'd greeted me earlier, paused by my chair, her perfume sharp. "You must feel so special being invited," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Liam's so generous, including everyone." The pause was deliberate, her smile a blade. I nodded, my throat tight, and she moved on, leaving me to drown in the subtext. I was charity, not a guest. I caught another glimpse of Liam, this time near the bar, laughing with Claire. He looked happy, whole, a far cry from the boy I'd known. As if sensing me, he turned, his eyes finding mine again. He started toward me, his stride purposeful, but a group of friends intercepted, pulling him into a toast. My heart sank, hope dimming. He was close, yet unreachable, his world a barrier I couldn't cross. The warmth in his glance lingered, a hint of a connection no one else saw, but it wasn't enough to silence the voices around me. Elise struck again, leaning across the table. "No date tonight, Rosa?" she asked, her tone teasing but sharp. "I bet you're too busy with mom duties, right?" The uncle chuckled, and I felt the room shrink, their laughter a cage. "I'm here for Liam," I said, my voice quieter than I meant, my hands trembling under the table. She shrugged, turning away, but the wound was fresh, my aloneness a mark they'd branded on me. I couldn't breathe. The chatter, the music, the weight of their eyes, it was too much. I slipped out to the garden, the night air cool against my flushed skin. The estate's roses glowed under string lights, their beauty a stark contrast to the ugliness inside. I leaned against a stone bench, clutching my locket, and let the tears come, silent but heavy. I was Rosa, a mother, a survivor, but here I was nothing, a shadow mocked for daring to exist. A memory stirred, unbidden, pulling me back 10 years. I was 28, Mia a toddler, working double shifts at a diner to keep us afloat. Liam was 17, a regular at my counter, his eyes haunted, his life unraveling. One night he'd stayed late, his hands shaking, and I'd seen something in him, a spark worth saving. I'd made a choice, a sacrifice that cost me dearly but gave him a future. The details were a blur, locked behind a door I hadn't opened in years, but the weight of it grounded me. That choice was why I was here, why I endured this night. I wiped my tears, my breath steadying. The wedding wasn't over, and neither was I. Liam's warmth, his note, promised something. Closure, maybe, or redemption. I'd go back inside, face the whispers, and hold my head high. For Mia, for the woman I'd been, for the truth I carried. The night was far from done, and something told me the worst, and the best, was yet to come. The wedding reception shimmered under the Seattle stars, but for me, Rosa, it was a battlefield. At 38, a single mother from a modest Tacoma suburb, I was an outsider in this world of wealth, my navy dress a stark contrast to the silken diamonds around me. The guests' disdain, whispers, smirks, pointed remarks about my status as a single mom, had worn me down, each jab a reminder I didn't belong. Yet Liam, the groom, was my anchor, his brief glances and warm wave hinting at a bond no one else understood. As the night deepened, I felt a shift, a tide turning, but the weight of judgment was heavy, and I wasn't sure I could hold on. The past. 10 years ago. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow on the checkered floor. I was 28, Mia a toddler sleeping in a car seat by the counter, my life a blur of diaper changes and double shifts. The Tacoma diner was my lifeline, its late-night crowd a mix of truckers and loners. Liam was one of them, a 17-year-old regular who'd sit at the counter, nursing a coffee, his hoodie hiding eyes that carried too much pain. He was skinny, quiet, with a bruise on his cheek he never explained. One night, near closing, he stayed late, his hands trembling as he stared at his mug. I was wiping down tables, exhausted but alert. Something about him felt wrong. "You okay, kid?" I asked, my voice soft, not wanting to scare him. He didn't look up, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't know how to keep going." The words were raw, a confession that stopped my heart. I'd seen kids like him before, lost, teetering, but Liam was different, a spark buried under his despair. I sat across from him, Mia stirring in her sleep, and listened as he spilled fragments. A broken home, a mother who'd left, a father who hit. And tonight, a bottle of pills in his pocket, a plan to end it. My breath caught, fear and instinct colliding. I was no counselor, just a mom scraping by, but I couldn't walk away. "You're enough," I told him, my voice fierce. "You're worth fighting for." He shook his head, tears falling, but I kept talking, sharing bits of my own struggle, losing my parents young, raising Mia alone. I don't know what reached him, but he handed me the pills, his hands shaking. I flushed them down the diner's toilet, my heart pounding. That night, I drove him to a crisis center, Mia asleep in the back. I paid for his intake with my tips, money meant for rent, knowing it'd cost me. I called his aunt, the only family he trusted, and stayed until she arrived. It was a sacrifice, weeks of late bills, eviction threats, but Liam's eyes, clearer as he thanked me, made it worth it. I never saw him again, but I heard he got help, went to college. That choice that night was a piece of my soul I'd given to save him, a secret I carried alone. The present. The wedding. Back at the reception, the memory faded, leaving a hollow ache. The garden's cool air had steadied me, but the ballroom was a furnace of gossip. I returned to my table, my locket, Mia's photo inside, a talisman against the stairs. The guests' judgment had grown bolder, their whispers no longer hushed. Elise, the lawyer in red, leaned toward Claire's aunt, her voice carrying, "She's the one Liam invited, right? Some charity case from his old neighborhood." The aunt nodded, her lips pursed. "Poor thing, all alone. Must be awkward." I gripped my glass, my face hot, their words a public dissection. The uncle's wife, sitting across from me, offered a pitying smile. "Don't mind them, dear," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "It's brave of you to come." Brave. As if my presence were an act of defiance, not an invitation from the groom. I nodded, my throat tight, and focused on the dance floor, where couples swayed, oblivious to my pain. Liam was there, twirling Claire, his laugh bright. Our eyes met again and he mouthed, "You okay?" I nodded, a weak smile, but his concern was a lifeline. He started toward me, but Claire's mother intercepted, her hand on his arm, her smile tight. The message was clear. I was an outsider, not worth his time. Disappointment crashed. My hope that Liam would bridge this divide fading. Yet his glance lingered, a warmth that promised something, keeping me tethered. The gossip spread, a ripple becoming a wave. A man at the next table, Claire's cousin, spoke loudly to his date. Heard she's a waitress or something. No wonder she's got no one. Laughter followed, and I felt the room shrink, their eyes a cage. I wanted to scream, to tell them I was more, a mother, a survivor, a woman who'd saved their precious Liam, but silence was my shield. I clutched my locket, Mia's face grounding me. I'd endured worse than this for her. I could endure this for Liam. The temptation to leave was overwhelming. I stood, my purse in hand, the exit a beacon. I could drive home, hug Mia, forget this night of humiliation. But something stopped me, a gut feeling, a whisper that Liam's note meant more than I knew. His glances, his wave, the way he'd looked at me, they weren't accidents. Something was coming, something big, and I had to stay to see it. I sat back down, my heart pounding, my resolve a fragile thread. The band announced the speeches, and tension coiled in my chest. Liam would speak soon, and I felt the weight of his words before they were said. The emotional waves crashed, hope that Liam would acknowledge me, disappointment at the guest's cruelty, fear that I'd misread everything. I was alone, exposed, but I wasn't broken. The memory of that diner night, of giving Liam a future, steadied me. I'd sacrificed then, and I'd sacrifice now, staying through the pain for a truth I sensed but couldn't name. As Claire's father took the mic, his voice booming, I braced myself. Liam's speech was next, and whatever he said would change everything. I didn't know what, but the air crackled with possibility, and I was ready, or as ready as I could be. The wedding reception hummed with clinking glasses and soft jazz, but for me, Rosa, it was a storm of whispers and stares. At 38, a single mother from a modest Tacoma suburb, I was an intruder in this gilded Seattle estate. My navy thrift store dress a stark contrast to the wealth around me. The guests' disdain, mocking my status, my aloneness, had carved wounds all evening, each slight a reminder I didn't belong. Yet Liam, the groom, was my tether, his fleeting glances and warm note promising a connection no one else saw. As the speeches began, I sat alone, invisible yet exposed, my heart pounding with a mix of dread and hope. Something was coming, and I felt its weight in the air. The reception hall was a vision of elegance, white linen tables aglow under chandeliers, the Puget Sound shimmering beyond glass walls. I'd returned to my seat after nearly leaving, my locket, Mia's photo inside, clutched tightly, a shield against the gossip that had grown brazen. Elise, the lawyer in red, whispered to Claire's aunt, their eyes flicking to me. "She's still here? Doesn't she get it?" The uncle's wife, across from me, offered another pitying smile, her voice low. "It's kind of sad, isn't it?" I kept my gaze on my untouched dessert, a chocolate tart, willing myself to disappear. Every laugh, every glance, felt like a spotlight, burning away my dignity. I tried to focus on Liam, hoping for another sign, a wave, a look, but he was at the head table, laughing with Claire, his tuxedo sharp, his joy untouchable. Our brief moments of connection, his nod, his mouthed "you okay?" felt like lifelines, but they were fleeting, drowned by the crowd's judgment. Claire's mother, in her emerald gown, hovered near them, her tight smiles a barrier keeping me out. Doubt gnawed at me. Had I misread Liam's note? Was my sacrifice, that night 10 years ago, forgotten? Yet I stayed, my gut insisting this wasn't over, that Liam's speech would hold the key. The band paused, and the MC announced the speeches. My stomach knotted, tension coiling like a spring. Claire's father spoke first, his voice warm, joking about golf and love, the crowd chuckling. Then Claire, radiant, thanked her family, her voice breaking with gratitude. I clapped, my hands trembling, as Liam stood, adjusting his tie. He was taller now, his boyish frame filled out, but his eyes, those same haunted eyes from the diner, held a depth that stopped my breath. He raised his glass, his smile easy, and the room leaned in. "Ladies and gentlemen," Liam began, his voice steady, "I'm the luckiest man alive tonight, standing beside Claire, surrounded by you all." The guests murmured approval, their glasses raised. He spoke of Claire's kindness, their first date, the future they'd build. I listened, my heart sinking, hope fading. This was a standard speech, no mention of me, no hint of our past. I shifted, my purse ready, preparing to slip out before the humiliation crushed me. Then, mid-sentence, Liam's tone shifted, his voice softening, raw. "But there's someone here who made this moment possible, someone I've never thanked enough." The room stilled, confusion rippling. He turned, his eyes finding mine across the sea of tables, pinning me in place. "Rosa Martinez, please stand." My breath caught, my body frozen. Whispers erupted. Who? The single mom. But Liam's gaze held me, warm, unwavering. I stood, my legs shaky, the room a blur of faces. Elisa's smirk faded, Claire's aunt froze, the uncle's wife gaped. Liam's voice trembled now, thick with emotion. 10 years ago, I was a kid on the edge, ready to give up. I had a bottle of pills, a plan to end it. Rosa, a waitress working nights to raise her daughter, saw me. She didn't know me, not really, but she sat with me, talked me down, gave me hope when I had none. The room was silent, a collective intake of breath. My eyes burned, tears spilling, as the memory of that diner night flooded back. Mia asleep, Liam's trembling hands, my rent money spent to save him. Liam's voice broke, but he pressed on. She drove me to a crisis center, paid for it with money she couldn't spare. She called my aunt, gave me a future. I'm here marrying Claire, because Rosa Martinez saved my life. Gasps rippled through the crowd, hands covering mouths. Claire's mother's face paled, her emerald gown stark against her shock. Elise stared, her glass trembling, regret flickering in her eyes. The uncle's wife whispered, "My God," her pity replaced by awe. Claire at the head table wiped tears, her smile soft, knowing Liam had told her at least. The cousin who'd mocked me sat rigid, his date's eyes wide. The silence was deafening, their judgment shattered, replaced by a stunned reverence I hadn't expected. Liam raised his glass higher, his voice steady now. "Rosa, your family to me. Your strength, your sacrifice, made me who I am. Thank you." The room erupted in applause, tentative at first, then thunderous. I stood, tears streaming, my heart a storm of pain and pride. The guests who'd scorned me clapped, some with genuine warmth, others with sheepish glances, their regret palpable. Claire's aunt approached later, her voice soft. "I had no idea. I'm sorry." Elise nodded, mute, her earlier venom gone. The cousin avoided my eyes, his bravado deflated. I sat back down, my hands shaking, the weight of Liam's words sinking in. Hope, so fragile all night, bloomed into something fierce. I wasn't invisible anymore, not a charity case or a lonely mom. I was Rosa, a woman who'd changed a life. The pain of the guests' disdain lingered, but it was overshadowed by pride, by the truth now laid bare. Liam caught my eye again, mouthing, "Thank you," and I nodded, my smile real for the first time. The reception continued, the band striking up, but the air had changed. Guests approached, their apologies quiet but sincere, their questions kinder. Claire hugged me, whispering, "You're amazing." I felt seen, not as an outsider, but as a force. Yet the emotional waves still crashed, relief mixed with the ache of years carrying that sacrifice alone. I clutched my locket, Mia's face grounding me, and knew I'd tell her this story, show her what strength looked like. As the night wound down, I stepped outside, the garden's roses glowing under moonlight. The weight of the evening settled, but I stood taller, my dignity intact. Liam's speech had been a vindication, unexpected and profound, silencing the judgment that had tried to break me. I wasn't done healing, but I was stronger, ready for what came next. The stars above whispered of possibility, and I was ready to listen. The Seattle estate glowed under the weight of Liam's words. The wedding reception transformed from a crucible of judgment into a stage of vindication. At 38, Rosa, a single mother from a modest Tacoma suburb, had endured hours of whispers and scorn for my simple dress, my aloneness, my place outside their world of wealth. But Liam's speech, his raw public revelation of how I'd saved his life 10 years ago, had silenced the room, turning their disdain to awe. The applause still echoed, a tide of recognition washing over me, but it was the quiet strength within, forged through years of sacrifice, that held me upright. I was no longer invisible. I was Rosa, seen at last. The moment Liam finished, the room erupted, a wave of claps and murmurs swelling around me. I stood, my legs trembling, tears streaming down my face, a storm of emotions crashing in my chest. Humility grounded me. I hadn't come for praise, only to honor Liam's invitation, but pride bloomed, fierce and unyielding. I'd saved a life, given a boy a future, and now, in this glittering hall, that truth shone brighter than the chandeliers. My navy dress, once a mark of my difference, felt like armor. My locket, with Mia's photo, a badge of my love. Liam's eyes found mine, his glass still raised, his smile a beacon of gratitude. Claire, beside him, wiped tears, her nod a silent embrace. The guests, moments ago my judges, were a kaleidoscope of reactions. Some clapped with genuine warmth, others with stunned silence, their faces etched with regret. Elise, the lawyer in red who'd mocked my solitude, sat rigid, her hands clasped, her smirk gone. Claire's aunt, whose condescension had stung, stared, her lips parted in shock. The uncle's wife, her pity once suffocating, clapped softly, her eyes glistening with something like shame. I lowered my gaze, wiping my cheeks, overwhelmed but steady. The applause wasn't just for me. It was for the girl I'd been, the mother I was, the woman who'd chosen to stay through the pain. I sat, my hands folded, and let the moment settle, a quiet dignity wrapping around me like a shawl. I didn't need their approval, but I'd earned their respect, and that was enough. The speeches ended, the band striking up a lively tune, but the air had changed. Guests approached, their steps hesitant, their voices softer. Claire's aunt was first, her emerald gown catching the light as she leaned in. "Rosa, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice low, earnest. "I didn't know what you did. It's extraordinary." I nodded, my smile gentle, no trace of bitterness. "Thank you," I said, meaning it. Her regret was real, and I had no need to wound her back. Elise came next, her red dress stark against her flushed face. "I was awful," she admitted, her eyes avoiding mine. "I had no right to judge you." Her apology was stilted, but I saw the effort, the crack in her armor. "It's okay," I replied, my voice calm. "We all make mistakes." She blinked, surprised by my grace, and walked away, her shoulders hunched. The cousin who'd laughed at my status lingered nearby, his date nudging him, but he didn't approach, his silence an apology of its own. Claire found me, her lace gown brushing my chair as she knelt, her hands clasping mine. "Liam told me everything," she whispered, her eyes bright with tears. "You're family to us, Rosa. Thank you for giving me him." Her words pierced me, a warmth I hadn't expected. I squeezed her hands, my voice thick. "He's a good man. Be happy." She hugged me, and for a moment, I wasn't alone. I was part of something, seen and valued. Liam approached last, the crowd parting as he crossed the room. He was taller than I remembered, his boyish frame now strong, but his eyes, those haunted eyes from the diner, were the same, now clear with gratitude. "Rosa," he said, his voice breaking. "I should have told them sooner. I'll never forget what you did." He pulled me into a hug, and I felt the years melt away, the diner's fluorescent lights replaced by this moment of closure. "You made it," I whispered, my tears falling. "That's all I needed." He smiled, wiping his eyes, and returned to Claire, leaving me with a peace I hadn't known I craved. The reception continued, couples dancing, laughter rising, but I felt a shift within. The pain of the night, the whispers, the mockery, lingered, but it was softer now, overshadowed by pride, by the truth Liam had laid bare. I stayed a while longer, accepting kind words, declining dances with a smile. I wasn't here to prove myself anymore. I'd done that the moment I chose to stay. As the clock neared midnight, I slipped out, my purse in hand, ready to return to Mia, to my world. The garden was quiet, the roses glowing under moonlight, their scent a gentle farewell. I walked to the parking lot, the gravel crunching under my flats, the estate's lights fading behind me. My hatchback waited, its dense a map of my resilience. I paused, looking up at the stars, and let the night's emotions settle. Hurt, hope, vindication, peace. I'd come expecting judgment, maybe a quiet thank you, but I'd found something greater, a mirror to my strength, a public affirmation of my worth. I thought of Mia, asleep at home, and knew I'd tell her this story. Not to boast, but to show her what it meant to endure, to choose kindness over bitterness, to stand tall when the world tried to shrink you. I'd been invisible once, a single mom dismissed by those who saw only wealth. But tonight, I was seen, not just by Liam, but by myself. My sacrifice, that diner night 10 years ago, had rippled into this moment, a testament to the power of one choice, one heart. As I opened my car door, the Seattle sky stretched wide, a canvas of possibility. I was Rosa, a mother, a survivor, a woman who'd faced a room of scorn and emerged unbroken. I drove away, head high, my locket warm against my chest, carrying a quiet strength that no one could take. The stars bore witness, and I was whole, my dignity a flame that would never dim.